Hi guys, welcome back to another screencast for Young Adult Literature, LSSL 5385 for the fall semester. This is Dr. Lassane again, and we're back at our Live Binders site. I hope that some of you by now have had a chance to explore Live Binders, see how they work, open up files, and looked at some of the requirements for the class. But if you haven't, then this is a good opportunity for you to do so after you watch this screencast. I'm going to go ahead and click on the binder for this class, and it takes me to my page. And because I'm the author of this binder, mine might look just a little bit different from yours because I'm able to go in and, as you can see, do some editing and things like that. So I may have some buttons you don't, but basically it operates in the same general way. I want to click on the Assignments tab because we've looked at pretty much everything else except these final two assignments right here. And today, in this screencast, I want to take a look at the textbook assignments for the class. You're going to be reading 30 young adult novels for this class, and in order to demonstrate to me that you have read the books, that you understand what's going on in the books, but more importantly, to demonstrate to me that you have a good feeling for what the textbook is telling you, there are some activities that you're going to complete. Once again, when I click on the Word document link, it asks if I want to open, to save, or to save as. In this case, I'm just opening it because I already have the file saved to my desktop. You might want to do that, however, just to have it as a backup so that you can refer to it anytime you turn on your computer, whether you're at Live Binders or not. So we give it a minute to open up, and here we go. This is the Word document that talks about the assignments that you'll do for the class. The first textbook assignment, right here, textbook discussion number 1, requires that you read these 4 books: Hereville, Wrinkle in Time, Persepolis, and Twilight. All of these are graphic novels. Reading all 4 of them should not take you a great deal of time because graphic novels are large on illustration and fairly spare on text. So this you should be able to do this one fairly quickly, certainly well before the deadline. Remember, you can always turn it in early, just not late. Once you've read these 4 books, it directs you to the textbook and says refer to the directions for completing a reading log entry. And that is found on pages 131 through 133 of Making the Match. You're going to create log entries for these 4 graphic novels following the directions, and in addition, I want you to insert the book cover along with the entries. Put all of these entries into one document, preferably a Word document, and submit it to Blackboard by midnight on the date that it is due. Pretty much this is the way that the textbook assignments are going to run from number 1 all the way through to number 7. There'll be a set of books. You'll see them right there in italicized print. And then there'll be directions taking you to the textbook and asking you to apply something that is in the textbook. For textbook discussion number 2, you're going to be reading nonfiction. You have Janis Joplin, Rise Up Singing, It's Perfectly Normal, and Charles and Emma, The Darwin's Leap of Faith, 2 biographies and a nonfiction book. For each of these books, you're going to write an annotation. It's a little bit different from the log entry, following the directions and examples found on pages 140 to 141 in the textbook. Again, you're going to put the covers of the book beside their annotations. Everything's going to go in one document, preferably Word, and be submitted to Blackboard by midnight on the date that it's due. You can see that for the most part, these are not requiring lots and lots and lots of writing on your part. The reading is what's important, and then applying the different kinds of examples that are given in the textbook. Here you're trying your hand at doing 2 fairly quick kinds of ways of reporting on books, the reading log and the annotation itself. Textbook discussion number 3 asks you to read A Tale Dark and Grim, No More Dead Dogs, Leviathan, and Going Bovine. Some funny books in here, but also you've got Leviathan, which is the Scott Westerfeld book that includes steampunk, so maybe a little bit more slow going there, but I think the other 3 will move pretty quickly for you. This particular assignment asks you to go back to the very beginning of the textbook and look at pages 20 through 23 about Piagetian theory as it applies to young adult literature. So many of you, I hope, have had educational psychology courses. You've had Piaget, where he talks about moving from sensory motor, where everything goes into the mouth kind of thing, moving to concrete, and then finally to formal or abstract ways of thinking. What I want you to do for these books here is to develop a set of 2 questions for each book. One question should be concrete. It can be answered simply by going back to the text. Those are those basic kind of comprehension questions. They can be something as simple as, what is the name of the main character in Going Bovine? That's fine. The other question for the book needs to be abstract. So instead of asking something that can be asked directly relating back to the book, it can be something a little bit more abstract. Some of my favorite questions are things like, why did the character decide to do this? Explain. What do you think is one of the themes that the author's trying to develop? Give me some specifics. Generally, when you ask an abstract question, it has to be a why and not a who or a what. Those tend to be very concrete questions. So think a little bit about that. You'll see some examples in the chapter. So you'll write a set of questions for each of the 4 books, put them in one document, preferably Word, and submit it to Blackboard by midnight. I hope you're seeing a trend here. Lots of reading, but the writing is going to be fairly spare, because what's important is that you're able to apply what you've learned in the textbook to the books you're reading. Textbook discussion number 4. You're going to center on Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, Speak, Tyrell, and the Tequila Worm. This also sends you back into the early chapters of the textbook, asks you to look at pages 26 and 27 and read about Havik-Hers's developmental task theory. And what you're going to do for each of the books is provide examples for how each of these books contains 3 developmental tasks. So you're going to look at Tyrell, and you're going to say, in Tyrell, we see working for pay. We see changing relationships with parents. We see. And you're going to continue to talk about those, referring back to the text. You can't just simply say, I see it, I see it, I see it. You need to tell me where and how that's developed. You're going to do that for each of the 4 books. Yes, 4 books, and 3 developmental tasks for each, which means there'll be some overlap, but I think it will be really simple to find at least 3 for each one. As a matter of fact, I think you can find at least 5 for each one, so you shouldn't have any trouble. Again, all in one document, submitted to me by midnight. Here are the final 3 textbook assignments on this page. Textbook assignment number 4 looks at some pretty dark kinds of books: The Chocolate War, Monster, and The Knife of Never Letting Go. What I want you to do for this one is refer to the PowerPoint slide, which will be at Blackboard for the class, for a brief overview of Kohlberg and moral development. And basically what you're going to see there are the 3 levels of Kohlbergian development: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional levels of morality. For each of the 4 books, you're going to talk about where the main character or characters, but most of this will just be one main character. Where is the main character developmentally at the beginning of the book compared to where is that same character or characters at the end of the book? Is there any moral growth, which of course is something you hope to see in these books? Provide specific examples to support your opinion. Again, all of these go in one document. They're submitted to Blackboard by midnight. For these assignments, for textbook discussion number 5, and also coming back up here for textbook discussion number 3 and number 4, you'll see that it simply says to talk about how these books meet these kinds of requirements. There is no form that is dictated here. You've got a form that's dictated for textbook discussion 1, that's your reading log, remember. Textbook discussion number 2, the annotation. But once you get to 3 and 4 and 5, suddenly I'm simply saying make sure that you indicate this bit of information. You can do that in a traditional paragraph kind of approach. You can do it in chart, you can do it in graph, you can do it in bulleted list. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that you are specific and you refer back to the book for these assignments. Textbook discussion number 6. You're going to look at Guys Read, Athletic Shorts, and Annie on My Mind, 3 very different kinds of books. These first 2 are collections of short stories. Annie on My Mind, if you'll remember from our screencast that did the book talks, this is one of the first books on LGBTQ issues. For each of these, and it says 4 books, and I'm really sorry, it's 3, and I'll fix that. You're going to create an annotated bibliography entitled, If You Liked Blank, then you might also like these books. For example, let's start with Guys Read. If you liked Guys Read, then you might also like these books. You're going to start with an introduction that says, if you liked Guys Read because it's a wonderful collection of stories by different authors, then the following books are going to be right up your alley. So you're going to explain in your introduction how these other books relate to the book you're talking about. If you liked Annie on My Mind and you'd like other books about LGBTQ issues, or if you liked Annie on My Mind and you're looking for other books that are set in schools, there are lots of different ways to go there, but in the introduction, let me know how the books are related, then create a short annotated bibliography. Remember to use APA format for those bibliographic citations, and for the little blurb underneath, you can use CIP or other blurbs that you find. CIP, if you'll remember, is cataloging in publication. That's generally on the copyright page, and it'll say CIP. Information, cataloging and publication data, and you'll generally see there a 2 or 3 sentence summary of the book. So whatever books you're tying to Guys Read, Athletic Shorts, Annie on My Mind, you're going to give me a bibliographic citation for 5 books and a 2 to 3 sentence blurb underneath that gives just a little idea about what's there. All 3 of those bibliographies get put together in one document, Word preferably, and submitted to Blackboard by midnight. Now, last assignment. The last assignment uses The Strange Case of Origami Yoda, Surrender Tree, Looking for Alaska, and Stuck in Neutral. Again, 4 very different kinds of books. For these, I'm asking you to read pages 137 through 139 of the textbook. This has information about Richard Peck's 10 questions that you can ask about any young adult novel. I'm always amazed that people don't know about this, even though it's been around almost 40 years now. But it's a great kind of generic list of questions that you can ask about almost any book that kids read, at least in terms of fiction. So for each of those 4 books, you're going to select 2 different Peck's questions that you think would be the best ones to have students answer. So a kid comes up to you and says, I really love this book and I want to kind of talk to somebody about it. What 2 questions do you think you could ask them from that list of 10 that would give you some kind of idea, first of all, that the child has actually read the book, and second, that the child has understood the book, so that you can start your discussion. So you need to use different questions for the books. There are 4 of them, 10 questions. You need 2 questions for each book. That means that 8 questions will be used. Those 8 need to be different. For each of the books that you're going to pose, you need to give me a rationale. Why are you asking this question? Why is this a good question for this book? So you're going to put all of that information into one document and submit it to me in Blackboard by midnight. Those are the textbook assignments. I am sure that as you begin to actually put them together, you'll have some more questions. Remember, you can email me through Blackboard or you can email me directly. The email addresses are in your syllabus. You can leave me a message on my voicemail, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can with any questions you have about the assignment. I hope this screencast helps you. Lots of luck as you're completing these assignments.